Welcome to a special Mother's Day edition of the Two World Podcasts, in which today one of the co-hosts, Jacob, and my co-host,
I am Barney,
will share about our own mothers and what we appreciate about them and the legacy that they have given us in their parenting. And we'll also share a little bit about our wives who are such great mothers too, and how they're raising our children. And so this is an opportunity to affirm the mothers and the grandmothers in our lives, and even those mentor figures in our lives who maybe didn't have children, but were very motherly in how they cared for us and for others. And so it's very exciting. And just to get us started, I'll hand it over to you, Barney. And as you're thinking about this topic, what comes to mind first for you?
Yeah, it's just the idea of motherhood. It's just such a big topic. And our mothers are so important in our lives. And I just think they have such a big, huge impact and do so much work to shape the people that we are. And maybe one thing that when we get older, we realize there are a lot of small things that happened when we were growing up and didn't mean much to us at the time. But when we get older, we see that even those small things had such a big impact on who we are today. And it really is thanks to, the environment we grew up in, which in a way was really orchestrated by our moms who had, especially if they were working, had such a big job. Moms that don't work, just being a mom is such a huge job. And then to add working to it, if you're not an expert at almost every life skill, then that's what it takes to be a mom, I think.
Absolutely. Yes. And the way that mothers have to think about the well-being of the household in a way that is so unique. And ideally, we would appreciate them all the time and affirm them and thank them every day. But the fact of the matter is, oftentimes their work is unseen. It's behind the scenes, and we take it for granted. And so it's important, I think, when occasions come up to pause and to reflect and to say, thank you. We appreciate you. And maybe even work at the more regular expressions of that in daily life too.
Right.
Laundry and cooking and so much organization and care to make sure that life can happen, and just to take moments to say thank you is important. I was kind of hoping too, during this episode, we could share some pictures and tell some stories. And if it seems okay to you, Barney, would it be all right if we started with our mothers? And then after we shared a little bit about that, we can move to our wives and how we appreciate them and their role as mothers too. Is that an okay way to go?
Yeah, that's great.
Do you have some things that you would like to share just to get us started about your mom?
Yeah. Everyone I tell, and I may have even alluded to this in past episodes, I think I'm just really lucky and fortunate to be the youngest. And, my two oldest siblings are 6 years older than me. And then my other brother is about 3.5 years older. And so I kind of lucked out and had the chance to spend maybe more time in the kitchen with mom. And, maybe I had less maybe I wasn't old enough to do the mowing the lawn, or I wasn't old enough to do this and that outside. And so, I have a real clear memory of all these times cooking with my mom. And I know Mari Sensei at the Yachi Bible church, she asked me years ago, maybe that first year I was there, and when Kai was still in elementary school, um, she said, she likes to cook, and she noticed that I like to cook, and she said she wants Kai to enjoy cooking, who is also her youngest of four as well. And she said, how is it that I got started cooking? And I have the clearest memory of, my first duty was just to put the pat of butter in the skillet and, stir it around with a knife to make sure that it was evenly coated. And then, from there, I graduated to stirring the white sauce, the milk and the flour and the butter, until it boils. And I kept thinking, this is taking forever. Why does this never boil? It's taking forever. And then now, as an adult, when I'm cooking, it's boiling too soon. I'm not ready yet. It's done way too fast. And and then so my love of wanting to make pies and wanting to make cinnamon rolls and things like that definitely comes from those times that I spent as a very small child in the kitchen with my mom.
Oh, that's really sweet. I could totally see that too, as you're coming in and observing and, oh, could I try some of that? And then
Mm-hmm.
you're invited in, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really special. Did you want to share any pictures of your mom today?
Oh, yeah, sure. Let's see. This the one thing about being the youngest is the photos that have you in them are much fewer. So I don't have a lot of photos. I'm very thankful to Jay. Actually, Jay scanned these. I don't have.
Oh,
I have very few photos of me and the family. So this photo I'm going to share. Actually, I'm not even in this photo. Oh, I wasn't born yet. But yeah, here you can see a real. This is such a great photo. I think this is the house before the house that I grew up in, and I wonder if maybe it's even still in Indiana. Looking at how young Jay is, and it's just such a nice family. It's just such a
it
nice photo to
is.
see. Yeah,
Oh,
and I couldn't tell you who took the photo, but just everybody looks so happy, um, and it's just I can just see this and imagine and still feel, the real love that we had as a family, even that I experienced, just looking at this photo.
absolutely. And if you had to guess at that point in
Hmm.
time, what do you
Hmm.
think your mom was invested in terms of job or things that she was doing in that season?
Yeah, I bet she was. I mean, working as a nurse for sure. And I know that when I was when I was younger, then she was, still working, actually, like in the evenings, the late,
Ah,
sometimes overnight.
wow.
And yeah, and I can't really say how her job was in that area, wherever they were, but
Sure.
yeah, but in nursing for sure at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
Excellent. Excellent. Um, well, I have a few photos to
Yeah.
share of my mom. And before I do that, I'll just mention that we have talked about our moms before a few
Hmm.
times on the
Hmm.
podcast. The episode that we did on bread
Oh yeah.
is a time
Yeah.
when we shared about our moms, how the sense of hospitality and home and warmth was so evident in the bread that they would make for us,
Hmm.
and the cinnamon rolls and sticky buns,
Hmm.
and how they're so associated in our minds with them. And that's 100% as true as I think of stories today. Of prominent ones is my mom's hospitality in the home, and the aromas of the fresh baked items. And then last week when we talked about gardening, was another
Right.
time when we could
Mm-hmm.
talk about our moms. Although I know also in that case you could talk about your dad too, which was special,
Yeah.
and that is also true. But I would add, when I think of my mom, and I'm going to share this picture as I talk about it. My mom was a very nurturing person who wasn't afraid to get down on her knees and bend over to my level and play with me and tickle me and run around the yard and enter into my experience as a child. And I always really appreciated that about her, that sense of playfulness and willingness to meet me where I was. And she was definitely still at the same time an authority figure and had expectations, but I she felt very approachable. And I think a lot of my mannerisms and ways that I relate to people were formed by observing my mother and how she interacted with people. I don't know if I would say it that she has a light touch with people, but just a warmth and very soft and not overbearing in the least. Always very approachable. Um, and I think I wanted to be like her as I grew up. I wanted to be that kind of person, and I feel like her pouring that love and energy into me has inspired me in how I have tried to parent my own children and to pour love and energy into them and play with them and play with their toys.
Yeah.
And another huge aspect too of my mother's life was her faith. And she would share with me when I was young, she would read the Bible to me at night.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a psalm that she would read
Mm-hmm.
consistently throughout my whole childhood at night. The
Mm-hmm.
same one, in addition to other scriptures, it was Psalm 91. And when I was little, there were certain verses that I loved to say loudly when she would come to them because I was anticipating them because I'd heard it so much, I had memorized it. And there was this one line about God saving us from the dangers of the day. At least that's what it was in the NIV translation she was reading to me. And so we'd come to that line and I would say, dangers of the day. But anyway, I think that not only my mom's way of relating to people, but also her way of relating to God and
Mm.
speaking about God is something that I admired and wanted to imitate and embody as I grew up. And so I'd like to
Mhm.
think that certain elements of that were also passed on to me. Um, I had the opportunity to interview Katie about
Mhm.
her mom, and there's a brief video clip that I'd like to play from her, if that's okay. So I'll go ahead and try to do that now.
One thing that I really appreciated about my mom as a parent is how well she listened. And it's been a gift that has kept on giving because I feel like I have the skills or the ability, or I don't know, just the habit maybe of listening to my kids in the same way, in kind of a non-judgmental, open way that just allows for a lot of really good communication and kind of honesty and feeling like you can be yourself. So I credit her with, teaching that to me, modeling that for me, and I hope that it's a gift that I can pass along to my kids so that they can communicate that way with their children.
I certainly feel like I observed that as another outside party. Katie would call home when she was in college and have long conversations with her mom, and she could tell her the whole range of what she was experiencing, and her mom would listen and encourage her and was there for her as a friend and as a parent and a support. And they had a really deep connection, and that was very inspiring. I found a journal that her mother had written, and there was an entry when Katie had just come back from finishing her sophomore year in college, and her mom said, every time that Katie comes home, it reminds me of how much I miss her when she's gone. And so it was just kind of nice to hear in her own words how much she appreciated that extra closeness they could have. And during the summers, being together was even more special. It was great they could talk over the phone during the school year, but having her back home was so special. So um, Do you know by chance if there are any stories or reflections that you've heard Ayako share about her mom?
Um, yeah, I think that her mom, of course, was worked in a daycare. Through it's here in Japan, it's connected with the city, so she was actually a civil servant technically. And so they would tell her go to this daycare or that daycare or this daycare, kind of year by year. And her mom had a real affinity, of course, for the kids that she took care of, because she would take care of them at least until age 6, when they're getting ready to go into elementary school. And so sometimes, yeah, she would have the same students for, quite a while. And yeah, Ayako would say how, even though her mom was so busy taking care of other people's kids, as a full-time job, when she would come home, she was always, ready to keep everyone, kind of, not in order, but keep everyone going and keep everything going smoothly and providing for everyone, really working hard at that. And so I think Ayako really remembered how much somehow her mom had so much energy every day, and was just always really willing to do so much for the family. And actually, they technically had, from what we're used to, they had an extra person in the house, as in Ayako's dad's mom lives in the same house. So it's one more person that she needed to think about caring for and making feel welcome and adding a place for. And her mom really worked so hard at that, and is so outgoing and just chats with everybody, and it's really so vibrant and happy in that way. I think that's really one thing that Ayako thinks about a lot about her mom, I think.
As you bring that up, it makes me think of the intergenerational aspect of parenting, how you just mentioned there that in Ayako's home environment, she had her grandmother present and her mom.
Mhm.
And maybe we could take a moment to think a little bit about seeing our parents as grandparents,
Mhm.
or even when our parents meet the parents of our spouse, or
Mhm.
even how our parents relate to our spouse, that sense of the intergenerational
Mhm.
dimension of parenting. Um, while you're maybe thinking of your experience with that, I just wanted to share another picture,
Mhm.
if I may. And this is a picture of coming up here of our family with my mom and my dad, taken, I believe, in 2011.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's very interesting because my parents like to visit us any chance they could, and we like
Mhm.
to visit them. And my mom, as a grandmother, loved to spoil her grandchildren and get them all kinds of sweet treats and toys. And what she would do is dole them out gradually over the visit. So the kids never knew, like, in the next 10 to 15 minutes, what new surprise might come out of her purse or out of her little gift bag that she would bring. And sometimes my mom would bring like packs of M&Ms in her purse when we go to outings and functions, and she'd slowly
Mhm.
start doling them out. The kids would get really excited. But it was interesting to observe how the role of a grandparent is slightly different. And my
Mhm.
mom loved to play with me when I was little, and she loved to play with her grandkids. But
Mhm.
since she wasn't there every day, when she did come, it could be almost like a full throttle without limits type of spoiling. And it's interesting too to recognize how she was a grandmother and how she had her own style, and then just observe my wife Katie, and to kind of see how they have overlap, but then they also have distinct differences, and
Mhm.
kind of learning, I think partly as you grow in marriage and learn like your family is like a completely new combination of things and has a new unique culture compared to your family of origin typically. And so it's a mixture of your family culture and your spouses, and you kind of create something new. And that's been an interesting journey for me, like in terms of my mom's parenting style and my wife's parenting style, and the differences that are there, and me kind of coming to terms with, this is natural and healthy, that it looks different and has different qualities now. And my family that say certain things did in my family of origin growing up. So I wonder if you have any reflections about the intergenerational things that you observed.
Yeah. Yeah, in my case, I feel like I rarely get to see my parents as well. And so I kind of vicariously see how my parents are acting as grandparents with my nieces and nephews, kind of hearing secondhand through one of my siblings, or maybe reading something that they wrote on a blog, or hearing stories from my parents and things like that. And I see how really supportive they always are, and also willing to, just as they were as parents, to support us and help us out when we're in a bind, or offer out of just the kindness of their heart, when they kind of sense that even before we say anything, that we're kind of struggling a bit or could use a break, and then they just effortlessly step in there. And I noticed a lot of my mom too. I would notice when I'm over, and then some of Jay's kids or Craig's kids would come over, and this was a while ago, of course. She would always prepare a little zipper bag of snacks for them to take home too. And they always, they gradually began to expect that. But I think it probably, even though my siblings didn't live too far away, it was probably just the right thing that my nieces and nephews needed for the trip home. If it's 5:30 or 5 o'clock or so, and then they just need that little bit to get them so that they can make it until supper is ready at their house.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah. And I do have some photos of when my parents visited here.
Yes, please.
Yeah. And it's kind of, before we started talking today, Jacob and I were both kind of having a bit of reflective time, looking through our own photos. And I just, searched through Google Photos for photos of my mom. And I really zeroed in on this one because this was in 2017. So Yuma wasn't yet a year old. And I just love how he's looking at my mom and my parents. Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. And he really wants to know more about these people. I think he had met them, of course, a few times already. Here we have these windsocks, these carp that are hanging up there, kind of in recognition of Children's Day here in Japan, which is May 5th. But this was late April when they were here. And then this is kind of traditional thing that they have. And at my wife's, Ayoko's family's house. And then here is sending my parents back home on the plane. And I like at the airport, and I just like this sense of how everyone is really together.
Yes.
And communicating in a way. And, Ayoko's grandma's here, and her dad, and of course her mom, and they're just communicating basically through smiles and laughing and kind of a little bit of verbal connection as well.
Yes.
And and it's just really great to have.
I like in that photo too that the most engaged, almost it seems, people are the two grandmothers.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And they have these like you said, smiles, and their eyes are smiling as they're looking at each other.
Yeah.
And it's like, of all the people in that orbit, they're the two at that moment that seem to really be connecting the most. And that's, I think, often that seems like mothers and grandmothers are kind of like that in life. They're a center that kind of holds the family together, and a lot of activity and relationship orbits around them, or it can. And
yeah.
Did I interrupt you? I'm sorry if you had more that you wanted to say.
No, that's great. Yeah. Actually, kind of speaking of different generations, as we were earlier, I wasn't able to get a video of Ayako, but I interviewed her a little bit. One of the questions I asked her was about the kind of, I said, like, the mothers that she has had in her life, as in not just her mom, but like aunts and grandmas. What were some of the things that she really appreciated from them? And she said how everyone was really quite different in her life, between her mom and her aunts, and easier when she became a mom and Silas. And from her aunts, she noticed how really good friends they are with their kids, and probably similar to what Katie had with her mom. And yeah, Ayako said that she really hoped to be able to be like that too.
Oh, that's really sweet. Yeah, I think it's helpful to realize that there are so many different expressions and forms of parenting and of mothering, and people have their own styles and gifts and how they do it. And to appreciate that diversity, we have to look for it and not try to fit everybody in the same mold, and like really appreciate their strengths and their approach as they bring it. And are there any pictures that you might have of Ayako with either Yuma or Silas that you might like to share? And if you need to look for some, I can do something else while you're looking if you want to, or you don't have to. You have some?
I did.
Okay.
So
great.
I wasn't sure how much permission I had to do too much sharing, but I did find one that I think that Ayako would be happy if I shared.
All right.
And so it's just the one, and this was, I think it was maybe last fall when we took just a real short trip to this hot springs. And they had a really nice, not restaurant, but not food court, but it was like this really just giant open kitchen with all kinds of different things. And we really always looked forward to that. And we're probably going to go again too. But I caught this photo of them at breakfast. And Yuma is wearing, it's Yuma and Ayako, and Yuma is wearing like, it's called a yukata. It's kind of like a small kimono. But not so fancy. And he's just enjoying his breakfast, and she's just looking at him, listening to what he's telling her.
That's a wonderful picture. I love that picture.
I just love that smile that she has. She's really engaged in what he's saying, and but still, just relaxing at the start of the day with her coffee, and he's talking about just some fun thing that he knows, and she's just giving him all of her attention, and it's just such a great photo.
Oh, that is a great photo. I love the love in her eyes, the admiration as she looks at him, and how he's just being himself. He seems totally comfortable, and there she is, just observing him and taking it in. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. How about for yourself?
I was able to interview Katie also and ask her one thing that she appreciated about parenting, or several things. And this is what she had to say.
Okay.
One of the things that I'm really enjoying about parenting right now is watching my older kids develop their interests. And so Micah, my oldest, who's 17, has gotten into photography recently and saved money to buy himself a camera. And he goes out and takes pictures of like rabbits and wildlife, and so it's really cool to see him develop that interest and be independent and responsible with an expensive piece of equipment. And then Aubrey is continuing to enjoy artwork and has purchased some of the supplies for herself. Some of the like pens and markers are really expensive. So a similar thing with her. It's just really cool to see these kids that you've mostly directed their whole lives in terms of the activities that they like, and that at some point they kind of come into their own and decide for themselves what they're going to pursue. So that's been one of the really fun parts of parenting for me at this stage.
You can sense maybe something similar to your previous photo as she observes Micah, Aubrey, and Hannah. There's that sense of appreciation and admiration and love, and what they're interested in and excited about, and what stirs them and inspires them. As the parent observes that, it brings delight. And so I have a few other photos also to share. This is Katie with her youngest, Hannah. Hannah went through a phase where she was really into the Disney movies and shows, Lilo and Stitch, or Lilo and Stitch. And so she has one of those shirts on. But yeah, this is the two of them just after a time of, in the evening, I think, of reading together. And then this next picture is of Aubrey, our middle child, at a special event where Aubrey was able to perform with other students who were taking voice lessons with the same voice instructor. There was an Italian restaurant in Canton, and they booked a slot where they could go in, and each of them would do one of their pieces at the restaurant. They took turns. And so this is at that event, but you can sense that sense of delight for both Aubrey and Katie and being together. And then also, this is one of those cases where Katie could see Aubrey doing something she really enjoys. And so that sense of enjoyment. And then one final one is, and it's recent, just from this past weekend. This is Katie with our oldest, Micah, as he's ready to go off to banquet, which at Central Christian School is the equivalent to prom. And so there, Micah is dressed up with his tie, which incidentally matched the boutonniere and the corsage that he was giving to his date. And there's Katie with him. And we were talking afterwards as he drove off of just what a big moment it felt like for our oldest now to go off to like this big, almost equivalent of prom. And it makes us think of these watershed moments that kind of mark the growing up of your children and emergence into adulthood. And so, so her in that moment, you can sense the delight and the joy. And I don't know if I would even say a form of like a pride. Like, look, my son has grown up, and here he is, this handsome young man, and he's going off. And so it was really generous too, because his date, who he was going with, her parents sent us a bunch of photos from when he picked her up. And then another friend of ours who was a parent took pictures as they were going into the meal, to the banquet, and sent them to us. So we felt like we have lots of good memories from that experience. So,
wow.
So I just think it's really important to, as we share this, to say thank you. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Ayako. Thank you, Liz and Pam, my mom, and Pam, Katie's mom. And can you refresh my memory of Ayako's mom's first name?
Noriko.
Noriko. Thank you. Big thank you to Noriko. And we really have been incredibly and richly blessed by each of these mothers. And it is a tremendous joy to be able to tell a little bit of their story today and to celebrate it. It feels really good and inspiring and meaningful. So are there any other things that you would like to share, Barney, as we're celebrating Mother's Day? I turn it over to you if there's anything else you'd like to share, or if you'd like to close this, either way.
Right. Thinking about Mother's Day and about moms, and looking back through old photos and recent photos, getting ready for today's show, it's just so neat about remembering the times that we had when we were little, and then reach into adulthood, and then now with our moms, and how it seems like our moms are such a constant in our lives, and they're probably our parents, but especially our moms are the one person that that relationship never quite, it changes, but it stays the same. And so we can, the things that we asked of our mom or wanted to do together with our mom when we're little, we can still do those same things when we were as we grew up, and the delights that they get when we have grandchildren that share with them, and like you say, like the occasional glimpse we see of just how they were when we were little too. And I think that there's no way that that we ever stop loving and appreciating and learning from our parents and our moms. And I remember I asked Ayako, how will you consider yourself a success as a mom? And she said that basically just as long as they get along in the world and become who they want to be. And she said that, of course, she has so many hopes for her kids that they're probably too high for anyone to reach. But I think that's what it is about being a mom, that they have so much love and so much hope for their kids and never stop, even if they seem unreachable hopes and goals and whatnot. They never stop cheering and loving for their kids and pushing them, forward and forward, but still remaining together with them. And it's just such a wonderful thing about being able to have these wonderful people in our lives that are our mom and the moms of the people around us that are so instrumental in their lives too.
That's well stated, Barney. Thank you for sharing that reflection. Absolutely. Then maybe we can turn it over to you then to close our time.
Yeah, sure. So we always want to say thank you to everyone for spending this moment with us, and especially for joining us as we talk about such a wonderful topic as moms. And Mother's Day is just really around the corner. And of course, as Jacob said earlier at the start of the episode, we always need to, I know, and they know that we feel it and we love them and we appreciate them. But, it's always makes such a nice effort to go out there and say something special for your mom and the people around you who you feel such a strong connection to as well. And we hope that you'll do that. And of course, we hope that you'll join us for another episode in the future too. And thank you.